Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Bi-Weekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
that means that thing starts. So we'll do roll call. So we'll go around. So Mark Layton, you go Alan.
Alan Mangan.
Chris Weeks here.
Rob Corson here.
And we have Dave Sharples.
Who wants to take the minutes?
It's next on the agenda, Chris.
Oh, all right. Sorry.
Probably not having any because I'm having technical difficulties.
I did last time.
All right. So Rob Corson has volunteered.
What was the password again?
Public.
I remember that.
With capital P for each one of them.
Yeah.
And
What year?
2012.
2012.
Why 2012? I have no idea.
That must be when they instituted it.
You've got it.
Yeah.
They had the same password for the last 12 years.
I guess they don't have to do it every 6 months, right? They don't have to
Okay.
update it. All right, so we go there. So, all right, next on the agenda, meeting minutes from August 23rd. Chris, you had sent that out a few days ago.
Yeah.
I think it's only you and I here that were present during that meeting.
Yeah, that's right. And Dan.
I got Dave here.
Dan, Julie, and Dave. Yeah.
Dave, we are looking at the minutes from last meeting. Did you have any comments or any changes? And neither did I. So,
Extra minutes.
second.
I guess you can
That's
say.
it.
Can I say?
I'm not sure if the.
Well, you guys didn't really have a quorum, but don't tell anybody.
We did because Julie.
No, she's not a voting member.
Well, we went through this. We had Dave confirmed that we had a quorum.
The Dan and Julie was there.
I thought the select board's rep was not a.
No, but she's a member. There's nothing that says.
Right, so they're a member, but they're a non-voting.
Ex officio, but they count still as I think like the quorum rules, I mean, at least my opinion is a member's a member. Yeah, you don't vote, but it doesn't say vote, voting.
Don't know.
Members that vote. I don't either really, but I was fine with it. So I was like,
There you go.
Yeah, and I don't think we voted on it.
and then
We voted on
they
two
didn't
things.
say
We voted on the
do
minutes from
any.
the meeting before, and we voted to adjourn. So those
Exactly. That's part of it. I
I'm
was
putting,
like, okay,
I'm
we're
putting
not,
on here, minutes accepted.
Yeah.
we're not spending, any money here. So
Yeah.
that would have made it been different.
Mainly the Bureau Veritas review. That was the big thing.
Yeah, which was good. It was good. That was a good oversight, overview, I guess, of that.
Yeah, that was
So, all right, so next on the agenda was the facilities condition assessment, and this was just a placeholder. I don't know, Dave, if you can give an update.
Well, I sent them all to you, right?
You did, yeah, prior to the last one, but I just didn't know if there's more since the last meeting, if there's any.
No, there was, they started the timing was such that when DPW got it. Now, I was involved to get it going through the committee, get the RFP, and then it's going to be in DPW, Jeff Beck's, kind of wheelhouse from there. And they did put in a CIP sheet at first, but they didn't know what they were going to do with it. They didn't know what the funding was, so we just kind of pulled it for this year because the CIP was already we got them in July. The CIP was the first meeting in August in the planning board. So I think they're going to regroup, look at them, and then possibly ask for maybe in the CIP next year to start a capital reserve fund, similar to others, like the Park Improvement Fund, the Intersection Improvement Program, and start something like that on facilities to start picking off some of the projects that they can't do under their normal, what is it, 100,000 a year maintenance budget.
So, and it would be a reserve fund, right?
Well, yeah, that's just the thinking right now.
Yeah.
And it didn't get submitted, so it's a little
It's a concept.
premature, but that's what, it looks like where it's headed for discussion.
So when we talked, you guys, as you noted, had just received the reports per building, right? And that was that Jeff and Public Works were going to review those.
Yeah.
So that's still where they are. They're still going through and reviewing the data.
Validating that the cost estimating was relatively accurate to the scope of work.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, I
It's
think-
better than what we had.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was just to make sure that they captured the projects correctly, the deficiencies correctly, and then that they didn't miss anything as far as that. It seemed like a pretty good system. It was a good overview by the owner or the representative. So surprisingly though, I mean, I think for me, I think the pricing does need to be reviewed, but that's just time, things that will evolve over time, but there wasn't as many deficiencies as I thought. I'm just looking at it quickly, which that's being scrutinized, so.
Yeah, and it did, a couple of things stood out to me. One, it threw up, which we already knew about, but the DPW campus was a big, that one seemed to need the most help.
Yeah.
And that was reflected in that report, so it's good that they're moving forward with some of their plans to evaluate their campus. And the other thing was to, I think it was Paul Vlasic at the end of it, mentioned that, you know, he likes the system and all that, but, you know, it's going to take some time. So hopefully the town can focus enough on it over the next year or two to make it, you know, worthwhile and make it work for the town. So I think they're still concerned that not enough staffing to get this thing going, but we'll see. We'll see how it
And
plays
maintain
out.
it.
Yeah, over the next year.
Yeah. Good. All right. Any other questions on the facilities condition assessment? Great. Town CIP. So Dave, after the last meeting, the town had, I think, sent to all of us the CIP at the time. I honestly haven't had a chance to look at that. That was sent. Rob, did you not get it?
I don't think I got it.
The one that was adopted by the planning board, right?
Is that what it was? It was someone you didn't send it, but somebody else in the town sent it.
Yeah, I
Was,
think
you know,
it should have a cover letter signed by Lang, August 24th.
do you know who sent it? Do you remember who it was? Just like look it up on email.
Pam McElroy? Was it out of the town manager's office? I don't remember.
Yeah, it
who
was.
sent
Oh no, that's not Pam. That's just making sure that Rob got it.
Who was it that sent it?
It wasn't Pam, I don't think.
It wasn't? Kathy Croto?
It may have been Kathy. Yeah.
I may have told her to do that.
Yes, here it is. Kathy.
Yeah, okay.
August 4th. Yeah, Rob, you were copied on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alan was.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
So that was a draft
I got
CIP.
it. I got it.
Oh, okay. Well, the new one, the only changes, I think the draft had that facilities condition assessment sheet. And then there was one other sheet that the DPW pulled. And it's escaping me what it was. So the new one is right on, I got it right here, it's right on our website.
It's on the website.
Yeah,
Okay.
2024 to 2029 CIP. And the only changes were the removal of that facilities condition assessment page because it just wasn't ready. And then there was another one that DPW pulled. Nothing to do with their campus or so forth.
Okay. And where are you on? What's the process right now? What's the schedule?
The schedule is the CIP is completed. The planning board adopted it. They don't have any funding authority whatsoever. Then it gets given to the town manager and the various boards, and the town manager creates a budget, and he puts what he feels is appropriate in there. And he just presented his preliminary budget Monday to the select board, and he's doing it tonight right upstairs to the budget review committee.
So the budget for the next fiscal year.
Correct, and the
Yep.
potential warrant articles. But that's just the town manager's proposal.
Yeah.
And then it goes through the budget review committee process, and then they make a proposal. You know, could be, you know, as presented, could be with some changes. Then it goes to the select board, and then the select board do the same thing. Either take it as is, make changes, you know, add, subtract, what have you. Then they vote, the select board votes on a budget to put on the warrant.
Okay. So tonight he's presenting to the budget committee.
Correct. So it's still got a, you know,
So you're in November, late November, kind of target date for the approval for the budget committee to complete their work and make
Yeah.
the recommendation on to this
select board, and then it's like January's some day in January is the last day that they have to, you know, they start holding public hearings on the budget and warrant articles.
Is that what he's presenting? I guess we can get it through the budget committee's website?
Yeah, there'll be a video.
There'll be a video online of
this meeting.
of the presentation.
Yeah, but what about the document? Can we get a copy of the draft that he's presenting, or?
I would say, I think it's right, it should be.
probably in their
You know what it
package.
is? It's on the, let me look, I believe I'm on their website right
Probably
now.
on the
iPhone.
select boards. Select boards.
Agenda and minutes, I think it's part of their packet
For the budget?
for the 25th.
There's an agenda.
Oh, for the select board, okay.
Yeah. But the budget, like, includes everything, I mean, that's not everything.
Yeah, no, it's more just what
but
he's
it-
presenting for warrant articles.
Sorry to be late.
No, it's okay. Are you upstairs?
No,
Oh.
just
Oh.
late getting going.
Here.
So what he presented to the board on Monday is also what he's presenting to the committee tonight.
I haven't gone over with what,
That's okay.
but I would, that's what I'm thinking.
We had a very simple overview of the budget.
Okay.
That's what they're talking about now. They're not doing any detailed stuff yet.
I was just curious if we could get a copy of what Russ is presenting.
Yeah, it's right here. It's
It's
online. It's in the select 925-23 select board packet.
Okay. Okay.
And I'm trying to find it here when he's budget.
We can look it up.
Yeah. Just curious what he's proposing for next year. We know that the fire station's back again, right? Oh, not the fire, public safety complex.
It's on the cover.
Well, yeah.
Please.
That's on the cover? Yeah.
I've been over the CIP items here in the list.
Yeah, that's true, I guess.
Yeah, it was back on, I saw fire and police under this.
Oh, you get the hard copy?
Sure.
Yes.
Oh, that was what?
So there are 1, 2, 3,
Warrant articles.
4, 5. There's 6 facilities related things they have on here. One of them is gone per Dave, the FCA.
Which one are you looking at, Chris?
It's the CIP draft from August 4th.
Oh, the one that was emailed to us.
Yeah.
So you're just looking at what was
Yeah.
proposed for,
Yeah, there's a fuel island at the DPW, new surface water treatment plant, safety complex, public safety complex, and then a couple of things for the rec center, parking lot expansion and renovations.
He is looking at right here in his, it's on page 48, bond articles, general fund, as part of his thing, the new police station with the fire substation for 17,522,500, School Street area reconstruction for 6.51 million, and ADA Capital Reserve Fund for 25,000, Great Bay Total Nitrogen General Permit for 75, Parks Improvement Fund for 50, and a Water Street Planning Grant for 100,000.
That's
The
it.
fuel island in it?
He has that under deferrals.
that was because Paul Bassett had said that was a priority
I know.
when at our last meeting.
Yeah, we discussed that with him because we kind of said, okay, I think his thinking was, the budget, is when you added everybody's request, it was I think
Wicked high.
12, 13%. Yeah, just
Yeah.
so something had to be done, and we got together and said, okay, what are your priorities? What do you rank? And actually, DPW. While they said the fuel island was important, they had other options. I wasn't thinking they had other options, but they mentioned they had other options. They're like, well, if for some reason, comes to straits, they have a couple of state. There's one in, I forget
Well,
what.
there's one
but they're-
right down by the high school, right?
Yeah, there's one there, then there's another one, I think, in Brentwood, and so, like, they can go and they can fill up and they get.
In other words, they can use an alternative fuel source during visit.
Yeah, I mean, it's not ideal because it's kind of, out of the way, it's not there, so you have to,
So you're wasting time and wasting money, yeah.
Exactly, but
Yeah.
they said that if that, they don't necessarily expect it to happen, but they said they could,
Okay, so that's why you get maybe
Yeah.
deferred 1 year or so, whatever. But,
And it sounds like to try to get the public safety complex through, you're kind of paring back on everything else, at least as far as priorities.
Thinking you'd have to speak to that. I know he was conscious about, presenting a budget that is palatable.
Yeah, okay.
Dave, I don't know if you can answer this, maybe Julie can, but was the construction estimate updated for the public safety complex for the warrant article?
Yeah,
I mean, how was it updated? I guess I should have asked.
it was 16.3 million last year.
Yeah,
And I talked to the professional estimator, Mark Jobin, who did the original work, and he was confident in that price. And I said, like when it was done, and I said, but what is it a year later? And he's like, add 7.5%.
7.5, okay. Yeah.
He's like, absolutely. He goes, I can guarantee you that it's going to be more next year than it is this year.
Yeah.
And we have been using 7.5%. So that's what we did. I just did a math equation, 7.5% of 16.3, and then add it, and that's the 17,522,500.
Okay. Yeah, just because we're seeing actually more increases.
We
higher
are
increases
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so-
I mean, the escalation and everything else is well beyond that.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, he told me they've been seeing, average,
Yeah.
certain things, but he said on average we've been using 7.5.
yeah, it's a guess. I mean, we've.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's
Yeah, I mean,
crystal ball type
yeah.
thing.
So we
Yeah.
had a project that we rebid, that was bid 6 months ago, and rebid again, and it went up 5%. So in 6 months, it went up 5%. So, but it is what it is. So,
Yeah, that would be a year difference,
yeah.
because the buyout would have been if it.
It's a number.
I mean, at least you're
Yeah.
including something. So and hopefully things changes.
Yeah, I mean, there was talk about, no, you got to keep it the same, but it was
no
just
way.
like, I mean, we already went to the, to the table, back to the table, cut square footage, cut spaces, cut some some things like, and just kind of left it as, okay, this is what we really need to have. We already kind of did that, savings beforehand. So we recognized that, and we met with, I think, the budget chair, the select board chair, town manager, assistant town manager, and they were all good with increasing it by that amount, at least at this stage.
Okay. Yeah, good. All right. Anything else on the CIP process?
CIP, all right, so we'll look at Russ's, what he's presenting, and that's kind of what the town's priorities are. Is that how we should move forward?
Well, that's,
Just the facts
Town
kind of thing.
Yeah, okay.
that's what the town manager's presenting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the budget review, they don't have the power to change it. They have just recommendation, but then the select board can come in and say, okay,
And we've done that in the past.
yeah,
Yeah.
and move things around and pull things back in and take things out, and so the process has just started.
Yeah.
basically.
The last thing I'll add, Mark, is I did reach out to Bob Kelly, so I'll try to set up a meeting with him in the next few weeks.
Right.
I'll try to give it a little more time, I guess, so that we have so the list kind of settles out a little more before we meet with him. But he expressed an interest in just having our committee discuss with the BRC, what our thoughts are on some of these CIP items before they make their recommendations. Last year we didn't connect in time, and I think some of our stuff might have been a little contradictory to what they were recommending. So we'll get together beforehand and try to we'll at least give them our opinions on what we think and they can do with that, what they'd like. But we'll try to do it before they make their final recommendations.
And it'll be in November-ish.
Yeah, I'll try to get together with Bob next month sometime.
That'd be great. Thanks, Chris. All right. So, any other one? Alan, Rob, any questions on the CIP or anything? So, next thing we had was the town hall program.
I came just in time.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Well, I sent you all just a little while ago the work that's been done by ARCO, our consultant for the town hall. And they have the historical survey and a little survey they put out to users. Had a meeting this morning, and they made a presentation. That's why I sent you the presentation. We had a meeting with stakeholders who are the people from town committees like this one, and Energy and Historic District Commission, and a couple other ones that will need to be part of it at some point in the discussion. They presented 3 different, not solutions, but ideas for making changes. Mostly it's to the space behind the screen, behind the stage, because that seems to be where the most controversial need is. The performing arts people want more fly space, and they want more, green room, and they want bathroom. So we went through all sorts of different scenarios of that, and got more information from people about what they needed. So they included an energy model that they did, so we could look at different types of things that we want to do. They recommended mini splits and I forget what else. A lot of what they presented was just to meet ADA compliance and code compliance. So stairways, fire-rated stairways, and possibility of getting rid of that fire escape, which was good. Some talk about making different spaces upstairs for not like a mezzanine level between the second floor and the first floor. Small rooms for small users, not like small user groups like this one, but for 2 or 1 user to do like study carols. I didn't know where that came from and wasn't quite convinced about it, but that's like a small fraction of the piece. So it was a good meeting, and there will be a follow-up after the suggestions that were made. And also, one thing that's definite is we needed to do the railing around the balcony. And there's been a model proposed by DPW and was approved by the Department of Labor. And it's really very simple. It was surprisingly so. And what they're really concerned about is the fallover from the balcony and the weight that they need to resist. So it's just a black rectangle with brackets, just triangular brackets. Very simple. There's 2 rails at the top and then a lower one, but nothing. I was expecting it to be a lot more dense, to be, child.
What's the height that they're requiring it to be?
How tall am I? It's like 40.
42?
42?
42.
I hope.
But isn't there, so that's
Yeah,
seating?
48 is the,
Right, but I thought that there was an exception about if it's in seating, so that you're not messing with your line of sight.
That,
We've come across that on ours, where if it's part of a seating, like we have a balcony that has seating, it's not you don't walk by, you sit behind it, that you don't have to.
Is there an aisle?
No, there's not an aisle around the railing.
That's what we have. Is that
Okay, so that's the difference then. So this is in front of your seating, so it's bench seating, so if you're sitting down, you don't want to have a 42 or...
The sight lines, I checked it out from several different angles, and the sight lines have always been better from the end anyway, but for someone my size, it really wasn't any different than having...
and this, ultimately, this is really should be a temporary, right?
It has to be
temporary
a
solution till we figure out later on what fundamentally.
It might just be that. It's very simple. It's not obtrusive to the building.
Yeah.
Doesn't detract.
But the balcony I just scanned through the report, but that was added though, right?
Right.
Yeah, that was an add.
That's what I'm saying. So it should be if you, depending on where you land on the
Historical record.
And where you want to return it to or don't want to return it to, then or does the mezzanine change even more now in 2023, 2024 to do something else?
Does it get larger?
Right.
I mean, if you want a larger seating capacity.
Yeah.
I mean,
That wasn't mentioned by anybody.
but that's
not
maybe
a
that. If
concern.
I was thinking about the idea of if you're going to, look at anything, the issue is the highest and best use for the building, so that, and with the notion that if it's not necessarily from the original building.
So you have options.
You have options.
Yeah, you don't have to
You
stay.
have columns right there. There's the pipe columns that are all
Yeah.
really right along that edge, so. But
So that was some, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Ron.
Well, anything in a building like that that is added to or changed significantly to the art history of the building needs to be made so that it can be taken out without major damage. So that's why this simple solution is good, because you can just, when necessary, just take it out. Bigger problem is going to be in the back, where we have really old stairs that are actually considered a character-defining feature. So it would be an effort to keep them, or should make an effort to keep them, and yet at the same time we want to rearrange the stairs up back there so that they're fire safe and more convenient to the users.
And part of that is that you've identified it, but you also have to prioritize some of that, right? So,
Yeah, so
and then you just have to
maybe a little
document.
discussion, yeah.
Yeah, but so who attended today for stakeholders?
Myself and Greg Eason from Parks and Rec, Dave was there. Doug Eastman, code inspection. Darren went on for economic development. I'm trying to think who's behind me.
it was a little short notice for me,
Yeah.
Yeah.
very short notice.
Yeah, I know, and it didn't end up getting the Zoom connection figured out, so we just went ahead and did it.
What about from the arts committee, the
Yeah,
team?
well, there's stakeholders and then there's users.
Okay.
Yeah, the arts committee, Pine Street Players, Festival of Lights, anybody that's used the building in the last 3 years that's pulled an application to use the building, left out the COVID time. So it was a group of about, 15, 20. It was more users than it was people from town.
Yeah. So you have identified the stakeholders, and then you have, like you said, the user group.
Yeah.
That is, I saw it from, I think it was the August meeting. I read the minutes that you had surveyed the stakeholders. I think it was how it was.
Very simple questions about what they're missing.
Yeah.
It wasn't, how do you want to use the space, because they already want to. We know what they want to do.
Yeah. So I guess the person that's been hired is going to do a feasibility study, is what.
Yeah. And her next thing is she's taking one more look at the back area where the performing arts people really need some space, because they're constrained in what they can present to us because they can't put large pieces of backdrops or props in the wings, because there's barely any wings. And the green room is up a flight of stairs, and there's no bathroom. And so there's some priorities there for us to use the building max, at its max for productions and events that would involve the stage. So there's just going to do one more iteration, because we talked about fly space, which can directly get involved with some of the proposals, one of the 3 proposals she did. Plus, then was added at the last minute our communications director, what's Bob's new title, our TV fellow, has been looking into getting a better projection system and then having a camera in front of everybody at the front of the stage. And so that will involve something back there also.
So has the best use and the program for the building been decided?
It's not like a single use. It's a multi-use for whoever. I think that's partly why Bush came up with these little rooms upstairs for people to do small things. But I don't know what you rent for there. But the idea is to make it so attractive that more things would happen in there, and not just performing arts, but musical things, the dance, Parks and Rec already does their Sweetheart dance, but it would be really nice to have, contra dancing lessons or something like that. So the highest best use for that was for the main floor is to, cultural aspects of it.
So more of a performing arts.
Yeah.
I saw that they're doing a feasibility study. I was just curious, what is the feasibility study going to include? Has that been decided like the second, is it the second floor or third floor, where the art gallery is? I mean, is that the best use of that, to keep that as an open space? Or?
That was the plan, yeah.
Okay.
It still can be used for meetings and such if, like, currently it's got an art show there. But the only reason it's still there is because nobody else reserved the space.
Right. Okay.
So it could actually have been taken down for the period of time that it was requested for, and then it would be open for meetings or some other use.
But I mean, that's the idea of this, was to maximize the use of the building to maybe bring in revenue,
Yeah.
right? So to have as many spaces as you can, that could be reserved and paid for or rented.
One of the things that was brought up was doing weddings there, and apparently everybody else shut that down, and I was like, but we can get a lot of money for a wedding, So,
Well,
but-
and I think that probably does bring up the obviously for any of this stuff, I think in the past, the management of this, I think that obviously the right
Let it
tool,
be.
whether it's Parks and Rec has, a management tool like the Stratum does, so you can literally book anything from anywhere.
yeah.
And I think, to me, was always the hiccup in the past was,
And then that came up too, is that we need to have an operator, basically,
Yeah.
an operator who's going to be there. Know what's happening.
Concierge scenario where you got somebody who's working for AV and who's doing other things to manage the building. What happens after it's done? So
Sure,
just I think a management plan is probably a good thing for the group to think about.
Yeah, who owns it?
Who
And
owns
then
it?
we're going to identify a little bit of pricing, as much as we can do with a schematic, and also look at not staging. What's the thing when you do one thing right after another? Phasing. Yeah, and look at phasing where we can do, like the rails we can do tomorrow, but other stuff needs to be coordinated. There.
Is there permanent seating in the main area or not? Okay.
And just so you know, there used to be a boxing ring over here.
Boxing ring?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, there's the base for stanchions on the floor. And they
Oh, wow.
They got removed the last time they finished the floor, but they kept.
So UFC?
Well, let's bring that back, right? That's a revenue
There you
source.
go,
Yeah,
yeah.
that could make some money. But
Could be a wedding
especially
too.
during political season.
There's some people, yeah.
Politics, they're
I
on
was going to
yeah.
say, there's some people I'd like to vote.
Yeah, bring the candidates back and that. But I mean, I guess because I didn't see it in the document, I was just curious as far as what has been documented. I guess as far as what the planned use of the building is, and because that's if the building's going to be renovated or you're going to add air conditioning, I mean that will have to be determined to really understand what that system is going to be designed to, right?
Well, most of the decisions came from the survey that was done by the Arts and Culture Commission on their webpage. So that was the
Yeah, I looked at that. That was it was like 100 responses on that. So
is that it?
That was it.
Oh, I didn't.
That's what I saw. I mean, that's
That
what
was probably all friends of what some person.
Yeah, well, that's what I was curious about. It was by the arts and whatever that committee
Arts and
was.
Culture Commission, yeah.
And so we had 100 respond. So
How broad was that spectrum?
and those that did it, they already thinking that this is what they wanted. Right? And I think that's a good use. I'm also just thinking about there's going to be a lot of money, and so what are you going to tell the community is, why are we doing this, and why are we going to spend millions of dollars on this building, and what's it for?
Yeah. Well, we still, we haven't gotten to the place where we're making any kind of representation or a presentation or final. This is what we're going to do for the whole public. This really is just the information gathering, and she threw out some ideas. And I really would like you guys to take a look at the. It didn't get recorded. That was one of the problems, but. Take a look at the thing.
Right. Yeah, there seems a lot of documentation that was provided anyway, so I think that's, but I think that building the plan now from the start versus waiting till we get to a certain point, so you, like we said for all of these things, anticipate the naysayers, right?
Pushback.
Yeah. People want to say, why do you want to spend
Yeah,
this?
and I think that's from the beginning is that should be part of the continued messaging to people, and when it gets to a certain point is making sure that there's communication. If whoever wants to attend, they may not attend. I know you're, but I think that's the. And it's for us to spend money on these projects and continue to spend money on them, and then it never goes anywhere. It's just, to me, that's part of why I think why I'm here, is that as a taxpayer, I'm sick and tired of things sitting there going through the friggin' process, and with us spending more and more money on studies and things like that that don't go anywhere.
Right.
Yeah, I think this one is sellable, but it really does depend on that final. It's really the back space that people don't see that has some flexibility in the use. There was talk about the rooms upstairs. They've already moved the storage area out of that top left-hand room, thank goodness. But because it's another labor thing, we need to give Bob Galacki more space than where he currently has all his servers, etc. And so his plan was to take that room.
Right. Well, and that's, I think that's been on the list for quite a while, but yeah, just as I've heard from a few people just in general, I think creating both a short-term plan, a middle-term plan, and a long-term plan, because I think the short-term plan is I think like I was asked about the railing, is I guess sounds like people feel like there's some utilization that's been
there has been
limited because of the interim, the where we are today.
Yep.
And then, so I'd say if we can continue to, get people to use it, and then as we're building the plan, there's also the discussion about the purchase of furniture, other things that I've heard about, and just want to sit there and say is that it's not like any of these things are permanent. So the reality is that are there things that could happen that don't preclude the rest of the project from going forward, or so.
Yeah, there's I haven't heard any talk about purchase of furniture except for the new folding chairs that we got. They're already there. Really, the biggest changes to the building were making room for bathrooms and
there's pretty large changes here. Making that basement, updating that for accessibility, modernizing it, and then making the back of the house work for the auditorium. It's pretty conservative. Have they done life safety evaluation on this stuff?
That's part of what they did, one of the things that was listed by the DOL was the height of the stage, and people, could fall off it and hit the floor. It's pretty high. And they made a recommendation to make a platform kind of echoing the shape of the stage, so that if somebody fell, it would only be like 12 inches, and then
I think there is a allowance for a stage to.
I don't know.
I've been to quite a few theaters, and I remember their stage. I mean, because she said 30 inches.
Yeah.
30 inches is the
standard for.
No, I understand, but I don't know if I've ever been the theaters down in Boston. I've never seen the stages are. I've sat in the front row. The stages
I don't think so.
The orchestral.
Yeah, I mean, that's weird.
Double ask on that one.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm wondering is that she's looking at it very strictly about some of that, where she's not understanding some of the architectural exceptions in the code as far as what it's used for.
It would be a response to whatever DOL said.
Yeah, but they might not be looking at the building code necessarily. I mean, maybe they.
No, they're not. They're looking at.
Well, yeah.
Well, they're looking at how we use the building and the safety of.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you got accessibility pieces, which is. So part of my other question was that yes, it's the comment about being able to take these things out, and I think that doesn't seem like that's a practical thing, because you're going to have things like lifts and
that was one of the other things that they're looking at.
Bathrooms,
changing the elevator to have more stops, so there'd be one at the stage level.
Right, which makes complete sense
down to the basement and chiseling out some granite.
And I'm not sure whether that one's still, again, how far are you complying based on a historical building, or are you complying based on, I think that goes back to the comment about both the life safety and utilization, is what code are they applying to the building, and what relief are they trying to get based upon its historical nature? Because you're able to get a fair amount of relief if, by...
Well, I asked that question at the state historic preservation officer when they came for a tour about what, we're dealing with the Department of Labor, not with, any code, but accessibility and fire safety, et cetera. And I asked them about that because I know we had the discussion at the Congregational Church too about you get cut some slack for doing stuff in a historical building, and his response was that no, we don't get.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think there's even they're just looking at it very strictly about what their local statutes are looking at. They're not looking at some of the other stuff that has exceptions on it.
Any of those.
Yeah, and you can apply for relief from certain items. So that the reality is that, like you said, is that what's really achievable. There's language in there that still talks about what's achievable versus.
Some of it comes down to local authority too. They can allow you to do that stuff.
And we had a letter from the preservation office saying that kind of thing, that there are enough aspects of this building that need to be preserved versus letting people fall off the stage.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't think that's played up in any conversations that we've had in-house. So.
Yeah, there maybe have to be some other, from just like sight impaired or something like that, maybe you have to, some edge or something, I don't know. But I'm sure that there's some guidelines from a theater standpoint. But that's good.
When, as far as using this as more performance space, the main floor, what about lighting and sound? I mean, that stuff goes expensive quick.
I knew that sound would be one of the questions that was asked, and they started their presentation. We didn't have a microphone set up or anything. We just had a projector set up, and the first thing that Tracy Kozak said was, "And the acoustics are great." So I was like, "Wow, yeah, I can hear you, but there's a little bit of an echo." Yeah. But those are also in the consideration, especially the lighting, because we'll have to move. Right now, where we have the sound mixer and that thing, that area, that big box of mechanical things. That was also a question of whether we're going to provide mixing services or sound services, or whether just the space and have our own for our own productions. But
BYOB.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, she said some of the
lighting
tours or something, they have their own lighting.
Oh, really?
And then just provide a rack or whatever she called it, a bar, and then they go and they do it.
Little pantry system that you can put up and attach lights to it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
And political campaigns do that. They bring staging for the press and their own chairs and arc lights.
Time frame?
A couple of years.
So for this study, for the work that's currently happening, what's the kind of
I think that's going to wrap up in November.
Okay.
Yeah, on that presentation, I think it says October, November to finish the final report. Yeah, and I mean, there's opportunities for grants and federal funding and state funding, probably, right?
There is some,
Because it's of historic value.
Well, that depends on the kind of work you want to do. But, the historic preservation types, you're looking at preservation.
Yeah.
You're not looking at upgrades to modern uses and things like that. So that goes to a different, like maybe the NEA or.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I think if you get into that, you're kind of locked into preserving it like that going forward.
Not if you're going through like the endowment for the arts. We did, certainly the box, the exterior, that we wanted to keep the same. And there's a little bit of a mention of adding on something in the backside. I forget what that came from, the access to the bathrooms or something, but that won't fly unless absolutely necessary.
Is there any way to designate the building that allows it to take fundraising and other?
You can do a Friends of the Town Hall kind of thing.
You can do something like that.
The town can't, but somebody else can.
Right, so I know like the town can, so like Parks and Rec can raise money, right?
Yeah, we have all the user fees go into the, we have our own town hall revolving fund.
Yeah, and then same thing with the library, stuff like that. You have certain entities that can, the Conservation Commission, things like that can all be revenue
Sources.
receivers,
Yeah.
whereas the town can't, right? That's
But can you can't start like a fundraising campaign, the town can't, or?
No,
would that
we
be
can.
separate?
I forgot that we had the revolving fund for the town hall. So yeah, we could.
But can the town employees, can you do, does that be from the Friends of,
No.
does that be volunteers to, I mean, you guys?
No, we have the authority to accept funds that way.
Okay, all right, so you could start a fundraising campaign for that, just that the money would go into the.
Thermometer up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we did one for the, where did we get those, the plaques out back? They're selling the plaques for voting booths.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
oh, did you? For voting booths?
Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
the copper coin things from the bandstand roof,
Yeah.
mounted them into plaques and gave them history.
Oh,
They're
that's,
selling them, so.
That's kind of a fundraiser, right? I mean,
It-
seems like
it is,
right?
yeah, there's
You're taking the
Money the
proceeds and buying
state should
voting
be
booths.
giving us, but
Yeah.
there it is.
I mean, there's nothing in the budget for 2024 for the continuation of this.
No, not to my knowledge, no.
I thought that, well, I guess it depends on the facilities condition assessment too, if there were some renewal items that came up. I can't remember what Jeff had said, are there items that is there leaking? We fixed the cupola, right?
Yeah.
Is that done?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the insulation in the attic is done. If there's anything, it's going to be maintenance.
Yeah,
And it will
okay.
come out of there.
But nothing big, then there's nothing that
big
would,
planned.
So you have, you have some maintenance items, but also wasn't there an assessment done of the facility from the insurance company, stuff like that? Are there
That
any
was the
other, we have
department.
an ADA, so the question would be, is I know we have the ADA study, we got that study, so the question would be, is what of that grouping of things that's not part of, bathrooms and other things, but are part of incremental next steps to advance the building?
Well, I've given all of those studies and various requests
To
and
DPW.
requirements from DPW to the consultant for this project. So that's why, I was asking about phases and, here are the things that we've been told we must have and here are the things that we'd like to have and here are the things we need to have and here's the things that we'd like to have.
so on the railings for the balcony, you said that there was a fix, then what's the schedule for that? Has that been funded?
People there were under the impression that it was happening before the end of October. I did not ever hear anything about that.
Okay, is
but they're-
DPW doing that?
Yep, although they're hiring a contractor to do it's just all welded, with welded angles. It's what we block, 1-inch squares, I think.
that sounds interesting.
It passed the test. Yeah. I looked at it, I was like totally surprised that this is all there is.
And that's temporary?
No,
Oh, no, that's it?
we can take it out anytime we want, but that solves the DOL's problem, so.
Just may create others. Doesn't meet building code or, solves there from falling over, but it doesn't meet other things.
Well, as long as it
If
meets
you want to
the,
throw your
Once you add
baby-
a railing, then you got to start. Then you get the 4-inch.
Well, that was the thing. That's what I was expecting.
Yeah.
Was that, but it really was just for the safety of employees, really, to not tip over the side.
I don't know.
Yeah, I know. Well,
I think it's going to trigger.
well, they were
something else.
looking at it very specifically for a very specific thing, right? They were looking at it for
Right.
employee health and safety and welfare
Right.
versus.
So, but the child that's up there,
They
they can
don't
still
know
fall
what-
through.
They're not.
well,
Yeah.
that's what I said, and this is going to come back. So-
Yeah, I mean, what we've done in a lot of
But
cases
we-
like that is you build a frame and then it's use a translucent acrylic panel to basically give you the visibility, but also allow you to have the
Barrier.
protection. Yeah, protection for anybody.
Yeah.
Well, the thing about it is that yes, I don't think it's adequate the way it is, but it will get the DOL off. and they're they've been waiting. They wanted us to fix things within 6 months of their report.
So you got to check the box there. Just
Yeah.
then you might have Doug Eastman saying, "Well, now you got to do this."
Well, he was there.
Okay, all right. We don't need to create more problems.
That's the final AHJ on that?
Yeah.
The DOL has to sign off on it too, although I don't know if they're looking at it from that.
They're just looking at it from employees,
Yeah.
and we don't expect to have babies, baby employees.
All right. Anything else on the town hall?
No, I think that's it. Have you all had a tour of the place?
long time ago.
A
I've
thousand
been
of
in it
them.
a couple of times, like when they had the Christmas trees in there, and I think I've been to an art show up the top of it there.
You gotta take him up to the cupola and the whole
Yeah.
thing. He needs to go to the whole.
Yeah, I would
You
do
gotta
that.
go see
There's
the.
some,
Yeah, I've been up around it for the art shows and stuff.
Yeah, but the stuff in between the 2 floors,
Yeah, no,
it's
I haven't been there.
Yeah.
There's some good pictures in the
I would
report,
take
though.
the behind the
In the
scenes
historic
tour,
report.
for sure.
Yeah, that would be good.
When should we do that?
That's pretty much any time you guys want to do it, daytime or evening.
Maybe next meeting?
Yeah.
That could be.
It's a long ways from here,
We haven't had a road trip.
A road trip,
Yeah.
yeah.
We haven't had a road trip in a
Let the
while.
rent-
Yeah, we haven't
Band or
given
something like that.
since we went out to. I saw that they're working on Rain's Farm. They're
Yep.
got one side partially stripped and.
Yeah.
And doesn't know whether they're going to use Tyvek or not. I was a little surprised by that.
But did I hear that they need more money for that?
There's a CIP
No.
item, I don't know
Yeah,
what it
it's on
is.
Yeah, I think that's what I heard, that they needed. They found some
Well,
more.
we knew that they had to shore up the exterior, and I don't know if the CIP would be for some of those interior items.
I'm not sure.
It
Because I
would be,
know-
because what the work that they're doing right now was programmed a couple of years ago and got a bunch-up grant.
Yeah.
And then we couldn't get a contractor,
Yeah.
nobody was available or.
And the price went up,
And the
right?
price.
That's back. That's
Oh,
what
okay.
it
I
was.
thought they did.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought they had a contractor and they were moving forward. Well, they're doing something. That's-
Oh, they're doing something out there,
The
yeah.
exterior
They're out there
Okay, so they
working.
just need a little more money to finish it off then.
Yeah. Hopefully just a little more.
Mm.
All right. Next is new business. So we started talking about Rain's Farm. I guess it could be new business. So, but we'll go around. Alan, anything to do?
I have nothing.
Julie?
I gave you what I got.
Good.
Yeah, I don't have anything either. I guess for Reed's Farm, the only thing I could add to that is.
Thank you for tuning in to-
Yeah, to see what,
Yeah.
what's left to do with it. So,
Yeah, I think that's just, what are our next steps for any of the 5 items or 4 items or whatever that are on the CIP that we either need to
Yeah.
target or not target, or
Yeah, I think by the next meeting it would be good if we
Maybe that's a
review
good one.
those,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then we could have a discussion and come up with some recommendations. And
So that was next, well, the next meeting. So what do we want to target for an agenda for next meeting? We want to do CIP.
I wouldn't mind a tour. I think we could probably do
Okay.
that in a half an hour, I think, right?
Yeah.
So we got a tour.
We could either do that before and then start the meeting. We could do the tour at 6:30 and have a meeting at 7 over back here, or
We can do it. I mean, I'm available earlier too.
Yeah, me too.
If you want to do it at 6 or
6 to 6:30.
Oh.
Do a tour.
yeah, whatever that is.
Okay.
Next month, right?
Yeah.
yeah. Well, so
What
yeah.
month is
So
this?
wait,
I know.
where are we? So this is September, right? So it's
Yeah,
October.
yeah.
And we're gonna have a. That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah,
From a
so,
schedule standpoint, we're gonna be hard pressed.
So the 4th Wednesday, the 25th, October 25th.
Okay.
So I guess if we review the things and come prepared for the next meeting to have those discussions about the CAP
Yeah, we
items.
should,
and-
yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to look at what Russ is presenting in the warrant articles. Is that what we're going to focus on?
And then is there any other votes in between then by anybody that we should? I don't think, so the BRC won't have anything solidified by
No.
that point.
No.
So the select board doesn't have anything else. Okay. Yeah,
I think
guess-
that the only items would be the CIP, and if there's any from the maintenance side of things, a maintenance list for 2020, budget for maintenance items in 2025, 2024.
Yeah, I'd like to know that. What is the list?
Yeah.
Since they
All
haven't
right. So that would be the DPW maintenance list, right?
Yeah, since they haven't had a director, they should be able to double that budget this year, right?
Is that Dave? Is that something you
No,
can get?
that extra money's going to.
Yeah, just let me know.
That extra money
What
goes
he's
into the
presenting.
general fund. So
Is
that
that
we can-
100,000? Like what's on his project list for next year?
I can try to find one out.
All right. So we got agenda topics. We'll talk through the CIP, the warrant articles that are being proposed toward town hall. That's at 6 p.m. Right? You
Yeah.
said. And then we'll hopefully get a copy of the DPW maintenance list for next fiscal year. One thing before we
1025.
Yeah, I was for new business. I was going to bring up the Parks and Rec building on Court Street. Yeah, if there's any update on that, what's happening with that?
Not as far as I know, so let's bring it up next month and I'll get some information.
Okay, so we can add that.
Yeah, I think we talked about the fact that they're doing work at the one on, and they're using this as a temporary interim or the location until they get that complete.
Yeah, they're just not moving yet, yeah.
Right, and we don't have I think from the last time we didn't have a date for when that was going to be complete or when there was going to be any kind of transition.
There's another CIP item for rec center renovations, so we'll have to read that. It could be in there, like what they need to do to finish the Hampton Road building off, maybe.
Yeah, that's just under $1 million, but it's all grant funded and revolving.
I thought they had one for this year. Didn't they have one for this year?
For what?
For the one on...
Yeah, but it's all grant funded. And
I get that.
But are they still, so they have to go out, they have to do a CIP or a warrant article?
no, they had one in there, but it's really not. It's not going to vote it on because we got the money.
Okay.
We've gotten awarded a grant, and then the match has all been identified out of the rec revolving fund, a couple other existing funds, so there's no tax impact, so it won't be a warrant article.
Okay. You said you saw one though, right?
Well, there were
Yeah.
2 line items,
It's-
one for rec center renovation, one for parking, so I assume they're going to
Okay.
redo the parking.
This grant came up, they went after it, and they got it.
Is this the same grant from last year?
No. What grant?
Last year they had,
They had a grant last year to put another
When they bought it.
$750,000 into the...
Well, that might have been something that they were looking for, but they got it. They just recently got it.
Okay, so that's just, what I'm looking at is, at least for me, is that
Are we adding up?
how much money are we investing in this building?
$1 million, just shy.
Okay.
This is what it all adds up to. The current project that they're
And
doing
who's
is like
designing it?
900 and something.
And who's designing it?
I'm not involved in it.
Okay.
But that doesn't have to wait for a vote. They can start that now. The money's
Yeah.
available.
Yeah.
Someone you'd recognize.
Are they doing it internally? I guess me personally, I'm just making sure that if they're spending $1 million in the building, that they've got somebody who is reviewing it based upon code compliance and all the other things, and
So who's managing the project?
who's managing and who's. It's not. I'm not saying this to you, but what?
It's not me.
So do we have to get that from Parks and Rec?
Yeah, Greg Beeson, I'll talk to him because it's just kind of started. This grant was like quick. It
Yeah, it
seemed
was
like
very quick.
quick, and you had to do, like here's the money, and you got to start within 60 days, and it's like so he put out.
That doesn't smell good.
Well, start meaning like okay, what start? Take out a door. We've started. You know what I'm saying? Like so, there's a little flexibility there.
Did they have to spend it
but
by a
I
certain-
believe he's going out because he talked to me about RFP process and everything, and I think they're going to go through that process, selection process. I think they'll go through the
Boy, we
process
should
to do it.
That would be nice to know what that process is. If
Yeah.
we could get some information on that. So
Yeah, I mean,
I can find, yeah.
this is not against Park and Rec, but that's
Not their specialty.
no.
and
And that's what happened last time. With
this is I guess my you've just hit the nail on the head. My thing is, I think it feels a little like we're doing the same thing we did over here at Court Street. And the reason they couldn't do Court Street was because they had to spend all this money to renovate it. So we decided to buy this building because we didn't have to do a lot of renovations. We didn't have to do a lot of stuff till we could begin to use it.
Yeah.
So it
yeah.
Snowball.
Well, and also just the renovations at the complex out there that went from was it a $6 or $7 million project to a $12 to $14 million project. That was one of the fields, and all of a sudden we
Yeah.
had a senior building out there, and we had all these
Yeah,
other
there was a
different
lot of
things.
scope.
yeah. So I just want to make sure that we're
Okay, so that would be good. So we'll add that for next meeting as a Parks and Rec building discussion or update. Or,
Yeah, I'll ask. I got to talk to Greg anyway. I got to get some stuff for him for another thing, but
Okay.
I'll have an update for you. I can figure
At
it out.
some point, maybe, I don't think this will be next month because we already have a long list
yeah,
there,
you certainly do.
to talk about the next use of that building on Court Street.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because I would rather start having that discussion sooner than anybody else seems to be interested in doing, so
Oh, okay.
you guys would be a good place to start.
definitely. It's going to be vacant, right? So
Yeah.
I'm sure people are probably,
Some departments kind of trying to leave their mark on it? or-
No,
Wow.
I'm putting my marker down on a couple of departments I want to put over there.
But see, now the reason we're leaving the building is because it didn't meet any compliance things. It didn't meet ADA, it didn't meet any of the compliance things. So it's like one of those things where when you start kind of master planning the whole
Yeah.
thing, you got to start to sit there and say, okay,
We don't have these things.
well, it's, do you sell the property?
right, that's what I was going
Do
to.
you know, what do you do, it's going down and saying, what are the different options to sit there and say, from what is a best thing for the town to do eventually with the property, and that it's appreciable to the community.
So maybe that's what we want to talk about, is does our committee provide a recommendation for that, right? I mean, we have to solve what has to happen, but maybe we should
I'm
put
going to add
together.
that to the next list.
Yeah,
It's
what-
hard to
Go right
solve
ahead,
without
yeah.
knowing how the town, what they're.
Right. So maybe it's not us to solve, but it's us to
Yeah.
recommend the process, right? So
Yeah.
maybe what we should, as a committee, say, we are suggesting the town do this to figure out and we come up with a list of options, and then come up with a matrix of all the options and all the different advantages and disadvantages.
And I think it would be a good time to get that going before we have a new DPW director.
No, because I think this original concept behind the FCA was to build the database for what the condition of the buildings is.
Right.
Secondly was the idea that we would do kind of a master planning exercise that really does look at, here's all these departments, here's all these needs from a programmatic for the total community, and then what properties either do or do not meet those needs. And then that way you get an idea about what do you do with Court Street, what do you do with some of these things, so that you've got a kind of like a trajectory to, and then that helps build that FCA budget over time of saying, well, we want to reinvest in blank, or we don't. We want to, what is that cycle that goes into your budget on a yearly basis to either reinvest or divest of certain pieces of property.
Right. So maybe our focus maybe that one building, but it gets into the bigger picture about all the property that
Right.
the town has, which we talked about doing a facilities master plan, right? There is a town strategic plan,
Yeah.
and then now focus on the facilities side,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, because it goes to we've got a department that's downstairs, a couple of departments downstairs located in there. And again, if you're thinking about this, if that's an arts building, is that the right use for those things? Are they in the right location? Are they co-located with the right people?
So that's what kind of triggered it for me, is that you had the finance down there, and is this building available for something like that?
Yeah,
But then-
and it very well could be that's a better
But-
scenario, right?
But then it gets into the question that you just raised, that what do you need to do to renovate that building to accept that use, right?
Yeah.
So accessibility and all the other things. I don't know if you'd be formally changing the use of it, but it's, once you do, then you trigger all the codes that go with that, right?
Yeah.
So, but anyways, okay.
In the general sense, I hope we would.
I don't
In the
think
general
it-
sense, it's governmentally office, government.
It's administrative,
office.
right? It's
Yeah,
administrative.
Sometimes it
yeah.
wasn't public facing, like if it was just a finance office where public wasn't going into it.
But it is public now. People go in there to sign up for rec programs,
Yeah.
sign up
It's
for
public,
Yeah.
rent spaces.
Yeah.
and that.
Art
If it converts
spaces.
to an office space where it's not necessarily as public facing, then maybe you don't have to do as much to get it up.
There's been some preliminary talk about this organ,
Yeah, it makes sense.
internally, because upstairs we're, Kristen's in with Doug, and now we're petitioning off, putting people. I split my office in half, to
You split your
put.
office in it?
Yeah, they asked me to put a wall. I was like, yeah, put a wall. I got plenty.
This reminds me of
So now I got.
15 years ago.
Yeah, so it's starting to get to a point where
Yeah,
now
sure.
We needed some
These
human
pieces.
resources, private space,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and closed office rather than hallways.
Yeah, this is to me a good time to really be
Definitely.
able to collect all of the programming associated with the operation. We talked a little bit with the DPW folks, so other towns, when we did our town thing, we found that there were engineering department, not that this is the right solution, but in some towns, engineering department actually was next to planning.
I was the community I was before.
Right, so up in, so
Not with DPW. DPW was out.
Correct.
Engineering was with planning,
engineering was
buildings.
with planning, and that was very, and we found that with a lot of places was that because they really do have a lot of things that go on at the same time. They share a lot of resources and things like that. So it's one of those where if you look at it as a total, what do you see that are potential opportunities
Right. So this gets at a much bigger scope, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's quickly grows, but I can't remember who mentioned this. I don't know if it was you, Dave, or if it was Paul Vlasic, but there was about a study that was happening.
I was just going to say, the town hired Bill Keegan to do kind of an organizational structural analysis.
Okay.
And he was just in here the other day. And he talked to all department heads, he talked to other people, key people, like what do you do? How's the department structured? He's looking at it and he's going to come up with this, report. And he's working on the report. I don't know what the time, I'm sure it's this fall, but I'm not involved in it. So
It was like a 6-week period. So
Was it a staff analysis?
he did say.
it was function and staffing, and like we might have somebody who has better qualifications than for what the job is they're doing, so they should be shifted to something else.
But will they look at some of those relationships that you talked about where people should sit, and as far as so this report will have some of that information?
Well, sit. What do you mean?
Like you just talked about where you had engineering with you guys. Yeah, will they get into some of those discussions?
I think like he's going to look at it what he said. I don't know what his recommendations are going to be.
Yeah.
But he said, how he knows a lot of how different towns are set up.
Right.
And he'll make recommendations.
It's like a benchmarking scenario.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Whether he comes, he could come back and say, "Oh, you're perfect." I don't know, but you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's what he is kind of looking at. Yeah, that's part of what he's looking at: organizational structure, the different departments, where they are, how they work.
Well, the time is kind of perfect then if we're talking about some of these things. What if he says that planning and building should be together with whatever, but it's not enough room here? Then maybe that's where some of this stuff can
Some
feed
of it
into that.
involves also a goal of the select board is a succession planning because.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So we have to make space for that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's part of it too. But your comment about the moving finance department is something I got to get back to Tracy Kozak with because we didn't look at it. She didn't look at anything about moving a department, town function out of there.
Yeah.
So.
Nope. It's one of those. It's thought process. So if you were able to occupy a good portion of the building and make it useful and create an opportunity somewhere else, then that's kind of what you want to, and not spread yourself thin because then you got continuous maintenance, right?
Oh, good. Well, we got our next couple of meetings filled, so
I make a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
all in favor?
Aye.
Good.
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned.
Now, nothing to do
Tuning
with
into Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv. Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Bi-Weekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.